don't I look so very noble in profile, looking over this beautiful countryside? I do often wonder, do I have to record these videos outdoors? It's always my inclination, and I think, I could just record them at home. But the truth is, we can get so embroiled in things that we forget that there is this beautiful real world outside, and it's very easy to neglect it. I had a really lovely conversation with my friends from Twitter, and they're both in the States, and I just marvel at the technology of it, because there are three of us on the call, but one of them sets up the Google Meet link that we all enter the chat with, and I was the first one to come onto the call. And when we first started, there was a little bit of, technical difficulty. The connection wasn't brilliant, so my friend went outside and set himself up in a lovely outdoor spot, and it was the States, so obviously it's very, very attractive, very pretty. The sun was shining in inimitable form, as it does over there. And I've got the beautiful sun here today. But it is really important to remember that online is not everything. It's a useful tool, but it can suck our energy and our attention like nothing else. And it was designed that way. All of the social media platform founders have said, oh, no, we designed it to be a complete dopamine maze of hell, and pay attention to that. But obviously use the technology for the great and glorious things that you can actually use it for. But one of the things, whenever I chat with these two gentlemen, we're all very similar in personality, introspective, but also very open. We're all sort of service-led men, doing various aspects of psychology and therapy, both personally and professionally. We're all working towards the same things in our own ways. I always learn a lot from these two men, but there's one thing that's really stuck with me, and I woke up actually feeling very renewed by the conversation, because one of the things that the gentleman that joined us shortly after I went on the call, he has to leave after an hour for another appointment, and I always end up having a longer conversation with the chap that set it up. So sweet, such a nice man. And it was about priorities. How are we actually using our time? How are we investing our energies? And this chap and I, we both run our YouTube channels, and I realise that in getting swept up with the political fray that is Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, the dopamine rush, the new addiction, let's just face it, Jesus Christ. They say that there are certain social media is more addictive than cocaine. I don't doubt it. Don't doubt it at all. But I've been getting involved with realizing that, my most recent video was they're talking about Brexit again. And I think, well, yeah, but is that useful to you? Is that useful? Something that happened a decade ago, nearly, here in this country of England. Is that helpful to realizing your true potential, about feeling more in harmony with the world and your fellow man and the universe? Does it actually solve anything? And when you think about it, it doesn't really, because all of these topics are so vast, so enormous, and basically out of our control. As I remarked, I did vote for Brexit because I believed in the spirit of England, of Britain, of the principles that have made us a fantastic civilization. But in terms of what I'm actually doing on my daily, you know, what I'm doing with my days, building a business, being healthy, getting out into these lovely surroundings, Brexit is just another event in a long chain of things that politicians and, you know, all of these shadowy spectre-like figures that we talk about, the they, and it's like, well, who is the they? And what are we doing with our time? What are we doing with our brains? What are we doing with our hearts? That's what we really need to invest in, and not be getting angry and stoking up more division between peoples. So the more togetherness, the more power we actually have, the more influence we have, the more unity that we have. And for as many people as there have been and are on the planet, there's a slightly nuanced theory of what's going on, and a lot of people don't even bother to figure out, you know, what's going on, and just living their day-to-day lives, doing the very best that we can do. Now, I'm quite an ambitious soul. I actually really want to do great things, and when I have conversations with these two gentlemen, I realise actually that in terms of day-to-day activities, it's quite simple to achieve what it is that you really truly desire, and that will do a lot of good for humanity. But it doesn't work when you're getting distracted. So you do have to prioritize. And part of this conversation, they sort of fed into each other. The talk about priorities is a talk about boundaries. And I was asking the chap a lot of questions about, well, you know, do you feel like you deserve the boundaries that you're setting? Because one of the things that I've had tremendous difficulty with is feeling guilty, actually, of setting boundaries, because I've been such an enormous people pleaser that I feel like prioritizing what I need is actually incredibly selfish and entitled feeling. This has been a massive issue for me. But having, I think, the sense of renewal that I felt when I woke up this morning, and I got out of bed so easily this morning. I felt full of purpose and joy and get up and go. I felt really fantastic. I really felt myself. And the simple question that I did put to my friend was, you know, do you feel like you deserve your boundaries? And he said, yes. And he answered really simply. And I thought, oh, wow, that's amazing. I thought, oh, that's really good. I'm actually a little bit jealous, because I still struggle with, you know, it was a really frank and lovely conversation, because it was totally without judgment. It was just being totally honest about what we were feeling, what we were experiencing. And I'm reading a really fantastic book, actually, that I'd recommend if you sort of need help on this issue about becoming a whole human being. It's a book called A Way of Being by Carl Rogers, and Carl Rogers was a big psychology figure in the sort of the 40s and 50s, even into the 70s, and there are lots of videos of his on YouTube, but he's done loads of books. But this particular book, A Way of Being, is actually a compendium of all of the various stages of his life and things that he's learned and questions that he's posed and experiments, social experiments that he's done with various encounter groups and school groups. I mean, it's really fascinating. I'm almost at the end of it now. But the unquestioned life, you know, if you're not asking yourself these questions, it can be very easy to drift. But if you're brave, and it does take some bravery to ask yourself these questions and be really honest about the answers. I have talked about this before, but I feel that I'm embodying it a lot more, and in a far calmer and more harmonious way. I'm actually really allowing the answers to come up in a totally natural and unforced way, you know, very organic. And if you're going to do serious personal work, you have to accept that sometimes you might pose the question, but you might not necessarily get the answer for days, weeks, or months. But it's just being honest with yourself and having the bravery to say, is how I'm living my life really working for me? And what issues are really preventing me from living my life? And boundaries are a perennial problem for so many people. Because I think that personalities always want something. It's something that Byron Katie said. And I think we live in a very, very entitled world where if you don't agree 100% with somebody, then you are just pure evil. That's sort of the environment that we're living in. It's all or nothing. There's no room for nuance or peacefulness in actually letting the answers come to you. Everything's a hurry. Everything's got to be immediately, if not sooner. And I've fallen prey to that. But there was another question actually that this friend passed on to me. I'm so grateful for him actually. And the question was, he told me that somebody else had posed to him, throughout everything that's happened, who have I been the whole time? Who have I been the whole way through? Who have I been all along? What are the consistent traits and principles that make Martin, that make you who you are? And I love that, because there's some constancy, there's stability, and it's personal. And of all the things that you're doing, well, I want this boundary. And why do you want it? Why is it important that you have that boundary? Well, I want this boundary because in the past, XYZ thing has happened and it has made me feel XYZ emotion. You've got to have the full equation. He came out with a really fantastic phrase that he'd also learned, that a boundary without consequences is just a wall. And there's wisdom. There's real wisdom in that. You can't be arbitrary about these things. You have to feel them. And in order to do that, you have to admit that you have emotions. And we ignore emotions at our peril. They're a guiding force. They're so useful. And to neglect them, or even worse, to completely ignore them, is totally impractical. And you see it play out in people that deny the things that they're feeling, and it always catches up with them. And it's so sad to see people who are doing brilliant things actually destroying themselves. And this is the thing that I have gotten from this Carl Rogers book, A Way of Being, that you can't just be an automaton. Human beings, we are unique. You know, we are practical and we are emotional. We have psychological drivers and obstacles and challenges, you know, to overcome. Which is why I've always been on the spiritual path and wanting to be of service, because I think that's the real way to bring people together. We're not machines. We're not robots. We are very, very complex and complicated beings. And at various stages, we all need help. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to have your emotions. It's okay to be who you are. Remember, always, it is your life. Thank you very much. Please do like and subscribe. and spread this very important message. I look forward to seeing you on the next video, my friends. Ciao for now.